Loom weaving. Weaving is acknowledged as one of the oldest surviving crafts in the world. The tradition of weaving traces back to Neolithic times, approximately 12,000 years ago. Even before the actual process of weaving was discovered, the basic principle of weaving was applied to interlace branches and twigs to create fences, shelters, and baskets for protection. Weaving is one of the primary methods of textile production and can be done by hand or by using machines. Machines used for weaving are called looms. Looms originated from wooden frames and gradually transformed into the modern, sophisticated electronic weaving machine we know today. Nowadays, weaving has become a mechanized process, though hand weaving is still in practice. 20,000 to 30,000 years ago, the early man developed the first string by twisting together plant fibers, preparing thin bundles of plant material and stretching them out while twisting them together produced a fine string or thread. The ability to produce string and thread was the starting place for the development of weaving, spinning, and sewing. Stone Age man's early experiments with string and thread led to the first woven textiles. Threads and strings of different sizes were knotted and laced together to make many useful things. Finger weaving, lacing, and knotting together of threads by hand is still used today by many weavers. During the Neolithic era, mankind developed great skill in weaving cloth. Every household produced cloth for their own needs. Weaving cloth remained an activity associated with the family unit for thousands of years. Over the course of this slideshow and the tutorial videos, you will hear lots of vocabulary used throughout. The loom that you are using will be made of cardboard. They can be made of wood or clay as well. The warp strings are the ones that go up and down the loom, and that is what will hold your weaving together. The weft is the colored pieces of yarn that you'll be using that go left and right. The shuttle is a needle-like device that you're going to make out of cardboard that you can wrap the string around and go over, under the warp strings. There's a shed stick that you're going to get, which is another piece of cardboard that's only about 1 inch wide, and you can use this in one direction to make weaving over under easier because you will just kind of flip it and create a gap within. And then the skein is the ball of yarn. Here you can see a weaving with a bunch of different techniques throughout, and we will learn how to make all of these. Fringe, sumac, pile, lace. When you think of rugs, I don't know if you know this, but rugs have a pile to them. So thicker shag rugs are considered high pile. And then lower, more like outdoor rugs, are a low pile. Talk about the textures you notice within this piece. In this piece, you can see lots of fringe. Fringe does not have to go only at the bottom, but there's rows and rows of fringe, and then it's created within this kind of triangle shape, creating even more interest. But throughout, there's lots of different texture created by different patterns and all of that. It's very interesting to look at. Pattern. What pattern do you see here? Do you see a pattern of colors? Do you see a pattern of shapes? The colors would be the light gray, dark gray, orange, and cream throughout the whole piece. And of course, we can see the pattern of shapes of the diamonds, and then the triangles and the fringe is repeated throughout. No matter what you are going with, you should have a pattern of colors and a pattern of shapes throughout. Realism. Do you see a definable scene within this weaving? You should. It is possible to create a landscape or other realistic scene if you so wish. It may be easier to do a simple pattern, but challenge yourself to create some type of scenery. Here are some more examples of realism. You can see a variety of mountains. Different colors make them appear farther away with the setting sun. This one These two, both of them are a lot more advanced, and most of the weavings will have fringe at the base. So this is a beachy scene, and they've just created a variety of rocks and seaweed textures going into the water and the mountains, creating some pile weave in the sky to create a texture of clouds. And then here we have sky, horizon line, water, down into the waterfall with the very, very well executed change to the fringe to come down. So realism is an option. It will definitely be a bit more challenging, but what you're going to do is draw out a template and put it underneath so that way you can follow along. It really won't be that hard, I promise. If you're creating a specific shape or design, like I said, you're going to draw it out and create a template. So here the person wanted a circle, so what they did was made a tracer, a template, and then they can kind of stick it in the strings and push down to help create the rounded edge. So whether you're creating a sun or if you're doing mountains for triangles, you can create a template to help you organize the differences of color. Color. Talk about the colors you see in the piece. How do they make you feel? Similar to our mandala project, a weaving is a calming, relaxed effect, and if it's hung on the wall, they're generally muted colors that are very calming. You don't really see them as bright, fantastical colors. Neon, not so much. You see a lot of cream, a lot of light browns, a lot of muted tones. They're very earthy. So here we see a repetition of orange, the tan color, darker brown, and the cream. And they are repeated throughout, creating a consistent color family, color theme. And then there's 2 rows of fringe, and then the top row was actually cut at an angle, and then this center larger fringe was added after the fact and kind of meets in the middle and just creates more of a focal point. Rhythm. Can you feel a rhythm or sense of movement within this piece? By looking at the edges of the designs, you should see movement along them, and then your eye kind of travels throughout. So this would be really useful in a scene with mountains, having the rhythm and movement of the mountains going down. If you have a river, a lake, all those edges will create a sense of movement. If you're not going with realism, like this scene, it's still okay to have those edges, but it just creates a visual texture and visual interest within the piece. So how, does that rhythm help? Okay, that's what you're always thinking about. If these lines were straight, would they be as interesting? Probably not. Here are some more realistic scenes. This one, of course, not done, has the fringe, has some green. You can interpret these as trees or mountains. And then they would continue adding maybe a sky or have an area of green here for the background ground area, and then move up to sky. They could add a setting sun. The options are limitless. This one as well. There's lots of empty space here, which is okay. We are going to end up filling the whole entire scene, but look at the variety of fringe that they've done. They used a bunch of colors, overlapped, and then they went in and cut sharp angles. And that creates, again, movement within the scene. And the mountains, your eye is traveling on that river that's created here. The trees as well, and you can feel free to experiment more with the trees, having one come in the foreground. These ones could have been smaller to appear like they were receding into the background. Here is an Etsy shop of a modern weaver, and if you look at the price point, she sells these as few as $60 upwards to $800. Now, I'm not sure how many of the $800 ones she sold, but it's because they're very large. But notice the colors throughout, they're very muted, and this one especially lots of movement and texture within. and you can always create more movement by making bigger gaps. But I encourage you to click on this link and really go through all of hers for some inspiration. And then again, we're going to be tying ours off on a string, on a stick with a string, and you can either use a stick or a dowel. You will be responsible for obtaining that. So now you're going to set up your loom, and I have this video prepared for you, so you would follow along this to set up your loom. After you've set up your loom, you want to go into planning your ideas. So you need to go back through the slideshow, through the shop, on your phone, and figure out, do I want to go with a realistic scene, or do I want to go with more textures and freeform scene, a freeform scene, whatever you want to call it, abstract we'll use. This scene is not the best. It's interesting, but there's not a lot of rhythm and movement. So I would like you to have more organic edges. So the first thing you should do is make your loom, and then you're going to go and plan out some ideas. Peruse through different shops, Google search texture, loom weavings, textile art, and just get some ideas. If you're doing a realistic scene, like any of these, you will be drawing out a template. And that is something that you should have prepared for next class. If you are in whatever cohort you're in and you're in the school building right now, you need to try to plan ahead and take some colors with you. Make sure you're taking strings, yarn with you to go home, because you're going to start weaving when you're home. If you are at home right now, obviously you will have the yarn when you come to school next day. And if you are a full distance learner, you need to plan your idea and you need to send Miss Bono an email, that's me, and I will get the colors delivered to the office for you. You need to send me that email right away so I have time to get them to you. So, like I said, follow the video, set up your loom. That is your task right now. Then you're going to resume the video, and I'm going to talk you through the techniques. Here, what I'm going through in the video right now, the videos that I have made are not uploaded yet, but I will have videos of me showing you all the techniques. But here are flat images of each technique that you're going to learn. You are required to include 4 of these techniques. There are 9 that I'm showing you. You must include 4. So go through and plan out after you make your loom and figure out which techniques you want to include. Raya is the fringe. Pretty much everyone will include fringe at the base of your weaving. The Persian or Egyptian knot is right here, and it creates kind of little balls within. And that is a really cool effect, and you can do a couple rows of that or 1 row here and there, and you can move it at an angle. It doesn't have to go straight across. You can move it and create the free-flowing line. Then you have pick and pick. This is a way to create vertical stripes. So you'll end up using 2 colors simultaneously, and if you look, the blue is only going over this one, under this one, where the orange is going over. So you'll create some vertical stripes. Like I said, I'll have a video showing you how to do these after. Right now, you're just planning. Twill is a specific way to go over under, so you're skipping a specific number of overs before you go under. So that way, if you look closely, you can see this horizontal design. It's kind of like chevron. Then you have the basket weave, which you'll go under, over, in a specific way, 2 in a row at least, so that way you create kind of squares, which will create in turn a basket weave. Then you have lace. This is where you're going under one whole row and not really pulling tight, and that way you can see your warp strings, okay? And for this to work, you must use a thick yarn. So if you want to do this technique, you might need to get your own yarn, or if you have a piece of ribbon, but the yarn that I have so far is not thick enough for this technique unless you were to double it up. Sumac you can do in a specific way to show a braid. So if I do the sumac going from left to right, and then this one goes right to left up, they work together to create that braided effect. So this one's really cool. But if I end up going the same way instead of reversing it, then I would just have kind of a wavy line effect. Interlocking is how you will create mountains and anything like that. It is where you will join two colors. So essentially what I would do is I would just do a plain weave with my green here, and then I would just kind of skip along and do more over here so that it would get higher. And then when I go in with the brown, I'm going to, as you see here, loop it into the green to interlock the two colors so I don't have any gaps. The pile weave is, like I talked about carpets, it's how you add kind of loops within. So you will need to use a pencil or stick of some sort, and you'll actually wrap the string around it to create a loop. So that one's pretty fun. And you are the judge of what techniques you want to include. So what techniques do you see here? Really assess all of the weavings that you're looking at, because you need to do a little research. You need to come up with your idea. In the abstract ones, you should feel a lot of movement within. They don't go all straight rigid across, unlike that one example I showed you a few slides back. Here you see raya, then you see short raya. We see the lace. We see the sumac. Sumac again. This could be pile. I'm not exactly sure. This could be the pile. But this is just a regular weave down here. So you just need to figure out how you want to incorporate all of them. And you need to have at least 4.